Thanks for tuning in to Discover Stories on Reimagine Radio. Before we get started, here's a word from our sponsor.
Do you wish you had a voice in making some of the world's most popular websites more accessible? Fable is recruiting a community of paid assistive technology users who work from home to test websites and provide feedback on how they can be improved. We're currently recruiting testers who use Dragon, voice control, eye tracking, switch controls, and head mice. No resume, no cover letter, and no experience with user testing is required. Learn more and apply at www.makeitfable.com/community.
And have you noticed or experienced any differences in the music therapy landscape between Vancouver and Saskatchewan?
I think the biggest thing is it's just a little smaller. We in Saskatchewan have, I think it's about 24 music therapists that are spread throughout the province, mostly in the bigger centers, like Saskatoon and Regina. But so with that, it's just we have a smaller music therapy association, smaller board, smaller team for things. So it does limit our ability to be present, I guess, and advocate for music therapy within the province, because we are limited just solely based on numbers. But I would say music therapy everywhere is one of those professions where it's sort of a create your own career passion type of thing. It's not like especially in Saskatchewan, it's not like there's job openings that are popping up every week for you to apply. A lot of it is partnering with hospitals or care homes or autism services and offering the service of music therapy and being supported by either a foundation or some sort of grant system. So most of it is new creation or expanding what is existing within the province.
Right.
Whereas I do see in Vancouver, there are a little bit more of those. You see job opportunities pop up and people apply, and there are some of those longer term existing places. And I think partially it's population, and it's also just the longevity of the history within the city as well. I think music therapy has been practiced in Canada. I think it's 45, almost 50 years, and maybe I should check that because I'm not 100% sure. But some of these things within, like Saskatoon, for example, where I live, have only been around for 15 years, maybe 20. So it's just sort of smaller, younger, growing. It's growing.
Yeah.
There's lots of opportunity. But yeah, it is definitely more of a create the awareness project here.
Yeah. And is there a demand for it though? Like do you see that there are more people who are more interested in experiencing music therapy?
I think so. And I'm not sure if that's just based on sort of the experiences that I have. I was able to work in a mental health facility in Saskatoon here, and it was just a short pilot project, but it was so well received by staff and the people that were there that it was one of those things where it's like, oh, well, how do we find funding to make this happen? How do we keep this?
Right.
And so I think there is a lot of opportunity, and there are a lot of people, once they see it, hear of it, it's how do I access that?
Yeah.
And sometimes it is starting from the ground up and creating those programs or offerings. And sometimes there are some things in place already.
Yeah. Oh no, I definitely hear you. I feel like, especially being in Vancouver, there's so many programs available for folks. And sometimes people also feel a little bit intimidated to receive that support and receive that help and apply for grants, for example. But it's there and it's for people. And I can imagine how within Saskatoon, um, or within the province, you're still you're still building that foundation, I guess, or like building onto that foundation you already have.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that is really interesting. And currently with your role, yeah, what prompted your transition to end of life or palliative care, and how does music therapy support individuals and their families in this stage of life?
Well, I guess first, I think I sort of came into it just based on some of the work that I did in long term care. Because I was the only music therapist for the residents, there were times where I was the end of life provider of care, I guess, as far as music or like the recreation, the rec workers wouldn't be able to necessarily offer a lot of programming just because of the state of somebody's either consciousness or ability level.
Mm-hmm.
And so music was the thing that provided that comforting, quiet space, and kind of could meet the need level in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So I did quite a bit of that sort of music therapy within long term care. So it kind of twigged a bit of an interest, I guess, in being part of that in a more um, prominent way, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
When I came back to Saskatoon, I had been doing kind of some smaller contracts here, and didn't have a lot going on when I first moved back. But a position actually did open up in palliative care at the hospital. And so I applied for that and was able to take on that role. Um, so part of it was the practicality of a job position opened.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the other part of it was something that it's work that I absolutely love doing. I think kind of more to the second part of your question, the end of life, if you've worked in end of life, I think you understand like that tenderness, that
Mm-hmm.
vulnerability of somebody's end of life journey, and with that their family members and loved ones around them. And
Mm-hmm.
I think there's just a different level of communication, I think, that happens at that end of life, that people are more open or willing to be vulnerable. And so,
Mm-hmm.
very meaningful conversations and meaningful memory making. And not to say that other times in life it's not, but there is a difference when people know that they might not be able to speak about these memories for that much longer. And something about being present in those moments and having that, well, for one, that privilege to be part of those discussions and in that room,
Mm-hmm.
um, is humbling, because they don't need to invite me into that space. They could keep that space for themselves. But
Mm-hmm.
instead, people invite you in and allow you to offer something in some
Mm-hmm.
capacity. And whether that's relaxation, whether that's a favorite song, whether that's just a moment of conversation,
Mm-hmm.
it there is just a depth that happens in end of life care, that is just so special and so
Mm-hmm.
beautiful and powerful to be part of.
Wow. I'm getting emotional.
I'm
But
trying not to tear up myself.
um I can only imagine how what it's like to be in that space with somebody who knows. And I definitely believe that too, that you were sharing that there's this depth and almost clarity, um, and wisdom that is being shared, and to be part of that is such a gift. Um,
Mhm.
Wow, I'm actually kind of lost for words. I think it's so easy for us to think about therapy as a means to solve our issues or to be less traumatized or to be better people. And then there are stories like this where therapy is conducive to sharing memories and meaning making and almost acceptance, I guess, of
Mhm.
where life is and where life has come to. And that's just so beautiful. And I'm just in awe of the work that you do.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Ooh, should have gotten a tissue before we started. Um, well, you've sort of shared a story, but I'm also wondering if there are any other stories that you can share that have stayed with you and have been impactful to your career and identity as a music therapist.
For sure. I mean, there's so many that come to mind, but a couple, I guess, since we're sort of in the end of life care conversation, um, I think one of the most foundational moments for me, which kind of did project me into end of life care, was when I was working. I was actually still an intern, um, or a pre-professional practicum. I was part of that 1,000 hours that we do before we write an exam to become accredited.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working with a family, um, and there was just a lot of complicated layers and um, just complex family history. And this person was at their end of life. And again, there was just so many layers of family tension and um, even members not being allowed to come in and just kind of that crappy situation all around.
Mm-hmm.
But in that journey, um, there was a moment when this person's children were in the room together, and I just happened to be there at the right time for this. And we all sang together, picked a song that was important, and all of them sang with me in that room. And it was just one of those moments where at least this is a memory that is positive at this end of life. And hopefully a memory that this family can hold on to as well to maybe balance out some of the bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So it was a means to foster connection and some form of belonging and tuning
Mm-hmm.
into that love that
Mm-hmm.
is probably there under all that tension. Is that love and wow, what a powerful memory to have.
Yeah. Well, and I think like keep talking about end of life stuff, but the hearing is the last sense that we lose. And I
Mm.
think as well for this person being able to hear their children's voices as well would, I don't know, I think it would bring me a lot of comfort to hear that and in a
Mhm.
positive way as well. So as much for the family as well, I think them having that familiar voice, that familiar presence must have comforted them as well. Or at least that's
Mhm.
what I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a very heartwarming story and I think such a beautiful note as we come to the end of our episode here. Um yeah, I can see how and you said this was like during your practicum hours still, right? So this was sort of at the
Yeah.
just like the beginning of your experience being a music therapist, like an accredited music therapist. And um, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as we as we come to a close, is there anything else we haven't talked about that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Not sure if I have anything specific, but I would say that if music therapy is something that stands out to you, maybe go take a look at the association websites. There's pretty much one for every province.
Mm.
And there's an opportunity to learn more. Most of us have our contact information available on those websites. And
Mm-hmm.
if you have questions or you want to learn more, just reach out. I think I speak for myself maybe, but I think a lot of us love talking about what we do and love relating to people. And just bringing more awareness to what music therapy can offer. So yeah, I think if anything stands out to you, just feel free to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. Thank you so much. Um, I really hope that people do feel, I hope that people who do feel called to look into music therapy, act on that and follow that intuition almost, or that curiosity, because it does sound so powerful, and so needed too. So thank you so much, Melandra, for taking this time and for sharing your stories. Yeah, that the stories you share are definitely gonna stay with me. And it was such an honor to speak with you today. So thank you so much again.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been a privilege to share about what I do and talk about, yeah, the beautiful work that can happen. So thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.